in the short amount of time, I lost a lot of good people that supported me in life.
Welcome to the Tristen Law Show, where I introduce you to the personalities in and out of the pro wrestling ring. The unique part is you don't have to be a pro wrestling fan to enjoy this podcast. If it's your first time here, I'm your host, Tristen Law, and welcome to another episode of the Tristen Law Show. I am so glad that you're here again, joining me for another episode of the Tristen Law Show, because it's fun for me to create this, because when I first came up with the idea of doing this podcast, I wanted to give my fellow brothers, sisters, a platform to introduce themselves to you in a non-traditional format. Normal pro wrestling interviews don't really center on who the person is outside of the ring, and I want to get behind the personality, That's what I know makes the Tristen Law Show unique. So for today's episode, I'm going to introduce you to Gabe Baez, and he's got a story to tell. He was bullied in high school. He's going to tell you about how he dealt with being a victim of bullying and how he managed to get through pro wrestling school at the age of 15. Become an upstander. Learn how to identify bullying, how to stop bullying, and stand up to it safely. Go to stopbullying.gov for more info. I wanted to take a quick second to remind you that you can also watch this episode, future episodes, and previous episodes of Season 2 at tristenlawshow.com, or you can just go to YouTube and type The Tristen Law Show. And without further ado, allow me to introduce you to Gabe Baez. My next guest is reading comic books, but when he's not reading comic books, he's making a name for himself in the professional wrestling world. I would like to introduce you to the comic book warrior, Gabe Baez. Gabe, what's going on, man? Welcome to the Tristen Law Show.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here. But I'm such a big supporter of you, man. I was like, I have to be on this. I'm really hyped for this.
Well, I'm a big supporter of you as well, too, because when you first started coming around to East Coast Pro Wrestling, about 2021, and I started seeing
2020.
I was like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. So, we have an opportunity for everybody here to get to meet the personality behind the personalities. We jumped at it, but yeah, man, I'm glad to have you. But prior to pro wrestling training, what attracted you to the world of pro wrestling as a fan?
For me, it was kind of like a family, household thing, because my grandfather, he was such a huge wrestling fan. And one day when I was coming back from high school, I was bored and I didn't know what to do. And he was watching Monday Night Raw. And I sat down, watched it with him, and I instantly fell in love with it. I fell in love with the stories, everything that was going on with it.
When did you realize that you were hooked to pro wrestling?
That would have to be when I first watched WrestleMania. That had to be WrestleMania 30, I believe. Because the main event was Daniel Bryan, who goes by Bryan Danielson now. The struggle, the art, the way that they showed his struggle, the way that led up to WrestleMania, that's one of the main things I loved about that got me hooked with it, because I fell in love with guys like him, because he was like me. He was the underdog, I guess.
Tell me about why bullying is something that you stand behind so much.
Because when I was bullied, I didn't have that much of a support group to help me with it. Not a lot of people knew about what happened to me when I was being bullied. They didn't know what was going on. And I wanted to try and be somewhat of a role model, hence the comic book warrior, because people see me and they see a superhero. And I try and send a positive message to it, because I literally posted a video on my Instagram of what it was like for me. I posted a video of me getting drop kicked in a hallway, and I didn't want anybody who was going through something similar to what I was going through to be kind of hiding, because I want them to let them know you're not alone. You're not experiencing this alone. I'm one of the few that's experienced it.
if somebody's being bullied, if there's a kid or even adults get bullied as well too. But if somebody's getting bullied, how would you suggest for them to handle it? Not in a way that I handle it. How would you suggest that they handle it?
Well, firstly, I would talk to somebody about it. One of the things about me is because I felt alone, I didn't try and talk to anybody about it. I didn't talk to my own family about it. And that's something you really have to like try and get out of your system, because the more like you try and keep it all inside, the more like kind of eats you up. It makes you feel humiliated. It makes you feel like they're right, you're worthless or whatever. And the best part about it is to talk to somebody and seek guidance in a way. And for me, I found out my own way. I couldn't do anything about it. So I had to talk to the principal about everything that was going on, which basically kind of made me a snitch in high school. I'm not happy. I wasn't happy to be labeled a snitch, but it was for myself, and it was the only way for me to get past this thing that was going on in my life.
If you can talk to your bullies right now, what's one message that you would tell them?
You didn't win. That because they claim that they always picked on me, because when I first started training for pro wrestling, I started training when I was 15 years old. They would all basically mock me and all that stuff. And even when I was walking into the classroom, they would say, look, it's Mr. Wannabe WWE. And I'm just like, and I was shy about it. And one day, this was about my first match ever. It was in Newport, Vermont, and it was recorded and posted on YouTube. And I sent it to one of my teachers who supported me in my pro wrestling career. And he showed it to the entire class where one of my bullies was sitting. And the bully started laughing. He started chuckling. And he says, what the hell is he wearing? Because I was wearing generic tights. And my professor paused it. And he goes, do you know where this match was? Do you know how old he is? And he made me stand up and he says, Gabe, how old are you? I go, I'm 15 years old. And he goes, 15 years old. And he wrestled a guy that's probably twice his age. And he went to Newport, Vermont, which is basically the Canadian border, and wrestled for chump change. He is fighting to follow his dreams, something you all should try and do. And that's when I instantly knew that I got this in the bag.
The funny thing, Gabe, is that those same exact people that were bullying you are the same exact people that when you make it to that next level will be the people that would say, hey, can I get an autograph? Or, hey, do you remember me in high school? You know, you think I can get a ticket? Those will be the same exact people.
That's in the back of my head too. One of these days I'm going to be doing a meet and greet, and one of them is going to show up saying, hey, can I get your autograph? And I go, yeah, sure. Don't sell it on eBay.
Because they'll need the money. So you mentioned that you started training at 15. You trained at IWF. Yeah. And IWF is the same school in New Jersey that made stars like NXT's Robert Stone, WWE referee Sean Bennett, and former WWE star and current New Japan Pro Wrestling star. He's now known as Fred Rosser. But what made you join IWF?
I was such a young age. I didn't really know that many wrestling schools. I was still trying to think of places closest because I had to rely on distance for me and what fit more with my schedule. And I originally joined IWF because of how close it was. It was in Nutley, which wasn't that, it was like a 20-minute drive from my house. And I loved the environment that I got from there because I met amazing people. I met Mimi Her, who's doing amazing in her own career. I've met my late best friend, Michael Cammett, Justin Adams, and Kareem West, Biggie Biggs, amazing people.
You didn't play any sports in high school, so how did you prepare for pro wrestling school?
At my high school, they had an early morning weight room program that they had that you could add to your class schedule. I would do that every morning. It was around 7:30 a.m. I would be in there at 7:15. I would be the earliest there. I would start stretching, and we couldn't go anywhere in the school. So I would be in the cafeteria stretching, and everybody would be looking at me like I'm weird. because I was the only one that knew the dynamics. Like, you have to stretch, you have to do this, you have to warm up. And during my regular gym class, I would be doing cardio.
So you were dedicated to being a pro wrestler or getting ready for it before you even stepped foot into the school.
Yeah.
Because, tell everybody how old you are.
I'm 20 years old.
And you've only been training, you've only stepped foot in the ring in the past 5 years. 5 years. That's not really a long time, but for a 15-year-old to know that this is what he or she wants to do and then to chase that dream at 15 years old, bro, that's awesome.
Thank you. It's when I say that I've been doing this for 5 years, people kind of look at me weird because they thought I started like last year when I said, oh, I'm a pro wrestler. Because when they realize that anybody could start training for it, but when they realize I trained so young, they kind of see how committed I am.
You were 15 years old. You were in pro wrestling school. What do you think were some of your biggest challenges while you were in pro wrestling school? At 15?
It would have to be to kind of maintain school life and wrestling life for me, because that's one of the biggest issues with it. Because I remember, and I also was working as a dishwasher at an Elks Lodge at 15. Like, it was like they would give me like $50 for washing dishes.
People don't understand how grueling pro wrestling is, or even the training, because, they think that pro wrestling is predetermined. It is predetermined, the outcome, but we're really out there killing ourselves.
Exactly. And when I started doing shows, that became like a real issue with school, because I would have to I would have to go to the principal's office and explain to him like what's going on. I would have to like tell him like, hey, so I can't come in this day because I'm going to be in Whitehall, New York wrestling.
You talking about having to ask your principal for permission. I've had to do that at my jobs as well too. And I always tell younger pro wrestlers to find a boss or a manager, somebody that's over you at work that really likes wrestling. Because once you find someone that really likes wrestling, or somebody that wanted to chase a dream, they will take care of you. I never forget when I was working, this was way back. Kid, you were probably only 5 years old. I'm kidding. No, you probably were. It was like 2009. Yeah, you're probably 10.
I was 8.
Wow, look at that. So when you were 8 years old, right? I had a manager, and I was like, look, man, I do this wrestling thing on the weekends, blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, I wanted to play softball professionally, and I couldn't do it. So I'm going to see if I can help you make your dream. And he always looked out for me. And I had another boss who I used to get tickets to the wrestling show all the time, and he would bring his kids. And that's how I was able to make a lot of wrestling shows. So, if you find somebody when in the work world that is passionate about what you do, when they understand the passion, they'll look out for you just like your principal did.
Also, one of the biggest changes I had to go through with pro wrestling was when IWF shut down. Because when IWF shut down, I really had no idea where to go. But somebody recommended Damian Adams, and I gotta say that was probably one of the best moves for me. Nothing against IWF, I have nothing against them, but in my opinion, Damian Adams, he helped me understand the psychology of pro wrestling a lot more, along with the moves a lot more.
You were talking about how you worked at the Elks Lodge as a dishwasher to get lunch money. When I went to public school, I always looked forward to lunch, because for me, in living in New York City, you grew up in New Jersey, that New York City public school lunch, my mouth watering, it was slamming. Bro, it was slamming. So talking about you and your lunch, tell me why you ate chickens with your hands in high school.
So in high school, I was trying to eat a lot of protein, and I would literally go to Acme at the time and eat a whole rotisserie chicken for lunch. And I would grab a drink, and I'd go to the Chinese restaurant that was right next to it for white rice. And I would be spending all that money every week to basically get that nutrition, get the carbs and all that. The one thing I lacked was vegetables, so I would have to come home and eat some raw vegetables here.
I get yelled at all the time, bro. I eat a lot of protein in my diet, but I don't eat any vegetables. I try to eat things that are different colors other than brown, or light gray or stuff like that. Bro, I get it. I understand. So like for you, like high school was just only a couple years ago, and it was so pivotal in your young pro wrestling career. So you mentioned how you had to go to the principal to ask for permission to go to the pro wrestling show. Like, think about it, bro. Most people your age were asking their parents for permission to go to clubs or go to parties and stuff like that. What did you do in high school other than wrestling?
Go to comic shops. Outside of pro wrestling, I really didn't do that much in high school. I only spent time with my family because here I conversated with a lot of my family members. My brother and I would always have fun. Me and my sister would always have fun. And I would eventually, some days I would spend time with my dad because he doesn't live with me. He lives close to Montague. And we'd go out, watch movies, go to arcades, bowling alleys, stuff like that. And honestly, outside of pro wrestling, I really didn't do much. I was a shy kid, so I really didn't talk to that many people. But I remember one year I had a group of friends, and they would invite me to their house to watch The Flash every Tuesday. It was on when I first started pro wrestling. And I remember when we first started watching it, we were so like, I was the comic book nerd. So I'm like thinking of the comic book behind it. I'm like, this kind of relates to this one, this one, this one, this one. And I'm trying to figure out who's the main villain. I'm pulling out like every single comic book hit in my head. And I'm going to say this now. In high school, I was a walking, talking comic book library. In my backpack would be nothing but comic books.
When I was younger, when I was about a preteen into early teens, what I used to do was I was really into wrestling. So you might not know about this thing that I'm about to tell you, but it's called WWF Magazine and WWF Raw Magazine, and WCW had a magazine back in the day. So what I used to do was I would take the pictures from the magazines and I would cut them out and I would put them on my wall, or I would put them into my binder. You know, a binder that has the plastic sleeve in the front?
Yeah.
I would litter
exactly
that.
Which one you're talking about?
I would litter those with pro wrestling photos and stuff like that. So I get it when you say that in school that you really loved comic books, because, bro, I loved wrestling, man. Nobody really understands, but I loved wrestling.
It's kind of like hard to explain for me when it comes to comic books. I actually have the comic books I make in right next to me, and I wanted to find people I kind of relate to. And what happened was I picked up an Amazing Spider-Man comic book, and it was while Peter Parker was still in high school, and I kind of related to that because he was a shy kid. I was like looking through the comic books, I'm like, this is literally like my life. And a kid who doesn't get along with that many people, who's antisocial, but but people don't know he's trying to live his life as best as possible, Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And that's kind of like me with pro wrestling. I didn't have that many friends. I only had a small few friends. And I was trying to find the best of both worlds in pro wrestling and in high school. Because around my senior year, things kind of started to like lighten up for me, because that's when I was jacked. And I had like a six pack at the time. And people were really starting to like notice my like dedication, my physique and all that. And I remember when all the coaches for every single team would come up to me saying, hey, you should join. Hey, you should join baseball. You should join football. You should join wrestling. And I said, when that wrestling coach asked me, I said, I already do wrestling.
One of the cool things that I agree that I've seen you create are the comic books, and they're all tailored to each match. And it would be nice to get one for this podcast, the Tristen Law Show. But what's the process that you have going into the comic books?
That's me and Ray Calitri right there.
Oh, nice. That's my guy, Ray Calitri.
And right here, a little ad in the back. Get your shirts. No, I'm kidding. But what goes into the process of the comic books now anyways is that I try and, like what we do in wrestling, I try and build a story with it. Like for my most recent comic book with Ray Cleetry, I took the promo that he did of me, because he basically said that in his promo that I will never be like the shining star he is. He is pound for pound the greatest champion of all time. And I wanted to see how I could do that. And I also remember when I called him a Queen of the South extra, so I had to add that in the comic book somehow. So what I did was I screenshot his promo and I edited it into the comic book to make it look like I'm reacting on my phone. So what I did was and this was at my job. So what I did was I took an old busted phone that I had as like a dummy phone. And I took a picture of me looking at the phone and I put a word bubble saying, okay, we'll see who's the best buddy. Basically like adding story, adding context to it instead of it just being matches. I wanted to try and build stories into that. And for me, I don't have the funding, I should say, to make a fully artsy comic book that most people know nowadays. What I do is I hire an artist to do a cover, and during that I take screenshots of everything that's happened with permission, of course. Nobody think that it's a copyright issue. I ask permission first. And what I do is I print I use a software to kind of make the pages look like comic book pages. And I add wording, I add text to basically kind of show what was going in my head at that time. And this one, I believe, is the highest rated one because it's sold out twice now.
If somebody wants to buy one, where could they get one?
So I posted that they could DM me at the moment. I'm trying to get it available on a website like Etsy. People think it's weird that I would sell it on Etsy, but it's the closest thing I can get to an official store. And I sell it for $5. But if they want, they could DM me directly and say, hey, I would like this comic book, an 8x10. And I would say, okay, it's going to cost you this much. I'll send you my Venmo. They Venmo me the money. Don't worry. I have boards and sleeves if anybody wants one. Don't worry. It's not going to be wrecked by the time you get it. That was one of the big issues. People were requesting sleeves.
That's pretty cool, bro. I didn't even know you did that. I didn't know that. I know you did a comic book, so I didn't know this much articulation went into it.
Yeah, because I wanted to do something that I kind of had a relation to, and the only relation I had to were comic books. And as a kid, I would actually make my own comic books. I would draw heroes like Red Dragon or Phoenix, and I didn't know there was actually a Phoenix in Marvel at the time, so I kind of got sad when I heard that. Guardian Angel, all those heroes I made as a kid, and it basically kind of, that childhood memory kind of spruced up this idea for the comic book warrior.
If wrestling wasn't your dream, what would you be doing?
In all honesty, I would probably be either in the fire department or working for Marvel right now. My one dream is to kind of stick to something I love. And one of the things I love is to help people in a way, because back to the whole bullying thing, I gotten so many messages from people who claim that they've been bullied or victims of bullying in the past. And a mother actually reached out to me one time saying, hey, my son's being bullied. What should I do? And I go, talk to him. The only thing to do is talk to him, help him get through this. And if you want, call the school. And she did, and everything was resolved. And to kind of be like that role model, it does kind of warm my heart in a way, because it's honestly a surreal moment when you realize that you helped somebody for doing what you do.
IWF, you mentioned it eventually closed, and you moved on to Damian Adams' academy, his school. And for those who don't know, Damian Adams has trained the likes of Tasha Steeles, Deanna Peraza, or on previous episodes of the Tristen Law Show, Steven Stetson. What makes Damian Adams' school so unique?
How he treats everybody. He is honestly like, and the way he thinks, the way he operates, it's something that I kind of like admire from him, because he teaches everybody in so many different ways. He helps you understand psychology a lot better. He does all these drills. And just so everybody knows, we do 1,000 squats as a warm up. It is not fun at all. He basically conditions you to become a diamond in the rough, because he wants everybody to succeed. And honestly, like, and he's passing on all this knowledge. He has like different styles of wrestling in there too. Like, I remember we started doing a lucha sequence and it was new to me. And I was stiff as a board. I couldn't move that much at all. And that's what he says, Gabe, you gotta loosen up a bit. You gotta do all this. And I actually started doing yoga to help my body loosen up, to help my body be relaxed. And it helped out phenomenally.
So you've been talking about characters, and we've alluded to this for quite some time. Tell everybody about your characters. And there's one of them that I don't like, but tell everybody about your characters.
So
start with the one that I don't like.
Kind of like, all right. So I call him the Agent of Chaos, because it's totally opposite of what my other side is. He's basically kind of destructive, kind of creepy. And the only reason why this man does not like it is because I wear these white contacts that scare the bejesus out of him. Every time I go near him with the contacts, he closes his eyes, turns his back, and walks away.
Yep,
it
doing
is
it right
hilarious.
Now. Yep, doing it.
I'm not wearing them.
I know, but I
was going to prank you by wearing them.
You know, I was terrified that you were going to do it. I was like, you know what? What if he does it? What if he does it? So I'll explain. So the problem with the contacts for me, and I've told you this before, it reminds me of this photo that was creeping around on social media years ago. And it was like somebody had a pimple and oh my God. And there was a fly crawling out of it. And right now the hair is standing up on the back of my neck and it grosses me out. Bro, when you are in the locker room, I don't even want to come next to you because you want to look at me. All right, moving on.
I remember in the whole Pack-On show, you were like, you tried to run away, but the locker room was so small that you couldn't like quite escape from me. So I'm just like, hey, Tristan, come here.
When you're running around with a couple months ago, you were running around with the contacts on at a ECPW television taping, and I didn't talk to you for the entire show. I greeted you, I didn't look you in the eye, and I left you alone until those contacts came out. Bro, nothing creeps me out. That creeps me out. Put the other one over.
So the other side is the superhero, the comic book warrior that everybody knows today. Basically, he's all the superheroes that everybody would know, Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Spider-Man, all those, like basically like rolled into one, because he kind of holds a code to be a hero, to do what's right, don't do anything that Agent of Chaos would do, which is basically try and destroy everything. Because I don't know if you remember or not, but during my match with Love Jones, I was acting a little bit more aggressive than I usually do. And both characters, they kind of like show some hints of super strength and like willpower to keep going. That's what, and the Agent of Chaos kind of like came to be after I saw Venom 2, because I remember a scene where Eddie and Venom were kind of fighting each other, where Venom wanted to go eat people. And Eddie was like, no, we're not going to eat people. We're going to eat normal food for now until things die down. And it kind of like clicked in my head. What if the comic book warrior kind of had an alter ego that he hates?
With all this that we've talked about, both of your personas or both of who you are in the ring, for somebody who has gotten this far and they still don't know who you are, who is Gabriel Baez?
Oh, that's a tricky question. Explaining the personas is a lot easier than explaining who I am. The only thing that I can really say is I'm a shy person. Sometimes I'm sometimes goofy, and I'm just a guy that tries to help out any way possible. I do whatever I can to help out with the community, anything like that. And I'm honestly like a person that's humbled by everything that he has. Like, I have a family that supports me 110%. I have an amazing group of friends in my wrestling community that I call brothers and sisters. I consider you my brother. And to have that, which is something that so many few have, is something that I'm honestly going to be grateful for the rest of my life. And when I reach to a point where I go to a big place like WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, anywhere I go, I'm going to thank everybody who supported me along the way. No matter if they stopped supporting me or if they kept supporting me till the day I die. Because along the way, I lost, in the short amount of time, I lost a lot of good people that supported me in life. And when I reach them, when I reach that point, I'm honestly going to be thinking of them because they helped me along the way.
So you mentioned going to that next level, WWE, Impact, AEW, New Japan. If somebody from their organization or another professional wrestling organization is listening, why is Gabe Baez, why are you the best person to be given an opportunity to join their roster?
Because I'm devoted. I'm honestly one of the, and I'm going to probably put on the best show possible. Because I want, and nobody, in my opinion, who I've visited so far has shown me that much drive. I have the most committed drive ever. I wake up at 3 a.m. just to go to the gym. I wake up every day desiring wrestling. I eat, sleep, and breathe professional wrestling every day.
What is next for Gabriel Baez?
The top. That's all I can say. No matter where that takes me, no matter what organization takes me, the top.
Tell everybody how they can find you, the comic book warrior, Gabriel Baez, outside of the Tristen Law Show.
You could find me on Instagram, gabe.m.baez, which is where I frequently post. You could find me on TikTok, comic.book.warrior. And you're going to see some goofy stuff on my TikToks, trust me. And you're soon going to try and find me on Etsy. That it's probably going to be up by the time that this is up. And you can find me at places like ECPW, Spartan Championship Wrestling, ECWA, and New Evolution Wrestling.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've just been introduced to the comic book warrior, Gabriel Baez. Thank you so much for joining us, Gabe. And everybody that is watching, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time here on the Tristen Law Show.